Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From Classroom to Corner Office Career Talks with Chris, a podcast created to provide hints, tips, and tricks for those entering the workforce, or maybe those that are already there, to support their career journeys and help position them to reach those career goals by learning from those that have lived it, both the good and the bad. Today, I'm joined by Brandon Galici, who is the founder of Galici Financial and a certified financial planner. So, Brandon, thank you for taking time to be with me today and to impart your wisdom to those that are willing listeners.
Hey, I appreciate the invite to be here, Chris. And I'll lead with I don't have a corner office. I'm working out of my home office, but my wife did help me decorate the background for those that are going to be watching the video side of this podcast. So not a corner office, but I enjoy the home office, and my commute is about 4 steps from the bedroom. So love the commute.
Yeah, corner office, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years may take on a whole different meaning with the transition, the shift to virtual work. So maybe that'll include a rebrand of this podcast later on.
No, I still like the corner office. So it's kind of at the corner of the house. So that counts.
Right. It's still corner to me.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, I'm not going to say you're relatively new to your career, but right, you are a younger entrepreneur and a younger founder of a company like this, I would say, in the scope of the industry, probably, which is an accomplishment and something that you should definitely be celebrated and congratulated for. So what for you did that look like coming out, preparing for graduating from college, what you did early in your career to establish yourself and set yourself up and prepare to be able to found your own, financial services company?
Yeah, so great question. So lots to unpack there. So a bit about my journey, even starting. You might think, oh, was this person from 7 years old just wanting to become a certified financial planner someday? Well, short answer is no. I started college at West Liberty as a sports broadcasting major. I know you have a sports podcast as well, so we were talking a little bit about sports before the podcast, but absolutely fell in love with that. But unfortunately, as you very well know, play-by-play commentators, which was the main thing that I wanted to do, those jobs don't open very often. And it's not about how hard you work and how diligent or even how good you are. Oftentimes it's who you know at that exact right moment when that position comes up. So I'm like, I could be making not very much money and doing something I don't like doing. Like, that's not a good combo. You might be able to get away with one or the other, but if you can marry the two, even better. So I got involved in the investment club halfway through school, fell in love with that, shifted my major to finance, and I really was blessed at West Liberty to have financial planning courses. It's now a CFP certified program, which is awesome. It wasn't yet at the time, but I still took tax planning, estate planning, insurance, investments, and put everything together, which was just so much fun. Got to do taxes my senior year of college, which I know for most people, they're like, taxes, that's like the worst couple months of my life at the beginning of every single year. But I loved helping people prepare their taxes, do some of the tax planning, and have conversations with real life human beings about their money and taxes. So then right out of school, ended up getting hired by a large financial services company. Got to spend about 6 months in St. Louis, which is where the home office was, for a bunch of other just recently college grads learning more about the business. And then in July 2018, they threw us out into our respective areas. I started in Wheeling, West Virginia, and I was knocking on doors to build the business before ultimately over the next 3-ish years that I then ultimately left to found Galici Financial. Just wanted a bit more independence.
Right, that's awesome. And I will say, right, the investment club at West Liberty still exists.
Nice.
They manage a $20,000 plus portfolio. So that's a great tool for students and a resource for them to get involved and to, play around a little bit, but right in the end, they are serious and they want to be successful. But right, that's a whole lot better than playing around with your own money or somebody else's money in that sphere. So that still exists. So you were
Awesome.
Going around knocking on doors and, trying to generate leads or using leads to generate, sales opportunities, all said and done, but with, the aim of supporting people in their financial journeys. What types of skills did you really kind of acquire during that time? Because, when you're going door to door and doing some of those follow-ups, you don't experience success as much as you would hope. So for you, what was the educational and the professional benefit to that?
So much. I don't ever want to have to go back to knocking on doors, but I absolutely learned so much. Just persistence, diligence, communicating in general, that's the highest of level. But when you're knocking on someone's door, and at least this was pre-COVID, so and it was in Wheeling, West Virginia. So I do say that I probably did have it a bit easier than other folks that could have been in different parts of the country at the time, where at least a lot of people would end up opening the door. And I just tried to be non-threatening, of course. Even to this day, Chris, if I go knock on a door of my friend's house who they know I'm coming, I will knock on the door and I will stand so far back with all my weight on my back foot, maybe even my back foot's on the first step, just to be non-threatening. My hands are in front of me, and I just can't stand close to a door when I knock on it anymore because I didn't want to be right in someone's face. So I think too, being able to deal with rejection is, we're all going to deal with rejection regardless of what careers that we're going into. If you are going to build your own business or you're in more of a sales type role, we get the blessing or curse, depending on how you look at it, of getting even more chances to get rejected. So that was a big one too, where you're not taking things personally. You just try to be respectful and ultimately try to serve that person and be respectful along the way. So learned a lot about communication, a lot about rejection, and walked a lot of miles during that time.
Definitely looking to get your steps in. Right?
Got a lot of steps in.
A lot of steps in. Right now, right, you founded your own financial services company. For many people, the process of making that happen, not just acquiring the skills and the knowledge to be able to be successful, but how to actually go through that process is daunting and many times a barrier to people actually following through. For you, were there certain challenges that you experienced in creating this business for yourself, and any kind of tips or words of wisdom you'd share with people that have this aspiration but just can't get over that mental hurdle to actually go through with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to have a pretty deep why. What is the purpose of going independent? Because I could have stayed at the firm that I was at. A lot of advisors might stay their entire career at a firm like Edward Jones, which is where I started at. But for me, I think I'm just, the way that I'm wired, I'm just naturally very independent, more entrepreneurial. I like to control things, sometimes maybe too much, you could argue, but I like to have control, make decisions, ultimately so that I can serve clients in the way that I truly believe best serves them. And I just wasn't going to get that at a large firm structure. So that's no shade or negativity towards any of the large companies out there. But for me, I needed a lot more flexibility. So I tried to get all of my life transitions, not all of them, a lot of them out of the way all at once. So I got married in September of 2020, passed my CFP exam in November of 2020, left Edward Jones to found Galici Financial in February of 21. And then 2 months later, my wife and I moved to where she's originally from in Southern California, where I am now. So a lot of transitions all at once. And probably the biggest thing that I wish I did a better job of, Chris, to your original question, I needed a better marketing plan, marketing and lead generation plan from day one. It was, okay, I figured out I've got a great fit. I have my back office in place. I have plenty of resources. I didn't have a great strategy and I didn't know anyone moving here hardly. Versus if I stayed in West Virginia, I had a pretty big natural network and I think I would have grown a bit quicker at the beginning. I didn't have that when I moved to California. So looking back, I wish I would have been more intentional, got into content way earlier than I did. It took me way too long. I don't even have a good reason. I wish I did that sooner. And again, just really wish I had a better marketing lead gen plan from day one, but feeling a lot more confident about that as I'm nearly around 5 years in, almost 5 years in at this point.
Yeah, and you do have a robust and I think very informational and educational social presence right now. So for you, saying that was the area I wish I had prepared for better or planned how I was going to do it in a more intentional way. What are you doing now, and what would you suggest for somebody that's trying to create a more robust social presence? What platforms, and it's maybe very situational, so just share broad advice, I guess. Some things to focus in on, maybe some tools to have access to, and what you've learned in creating this social presence that you wish you would have thought about early on.
Yeah. So again, I wish I would have done some of this sooner, because a lot of content is, you have to improve over time. Your quality has to get better, but typically quality is not going to get better if you don't do some level of quantity, right? Where if it's just, the goal is to post every single day and you throw something together and see what sticks, doesn't necessarily work, because there still is the quality piece. The quantity should lead to quality, which is the idea. So depending on your business, I mean, the first one, assuming you know who your target customer is, and if you don't know that, you need to know that first. That's going to be step one for this. Figure out where your people live, where they what platforms are they on. So for me, I focus mostly on Instagram. I think we're both millennials, and at least for a lot of my friends and the people that I connect with, a lot of them are on Instagram as well. So I say that's the main platform, but I still use technology that pushes it out to everywhere else, the LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. So I'm everywhere, a little bit on YouTube as well. But I engage and interact the most with people on Instagram. And even back to knowing your audience, that's huge from a content creation perspective. So over the course of my career, I feel like, imagine this funnel. At the top, it's pretty much anyone who has a pulse or could fog a mirror is what I heard. That's a perfect client at the beginning. And then I started to get a bit more narrow in who I feel I'm called to serve and who I serve the best. And once I've gotten a bit more specific, and I feel like this is a slightly ever evolving thing, it makes it so much easier to create content. So now I focus on a lot of business owners, maybe even solo business owners, do a lot of tax heavy and tax planning content, which for some, the same tax strategies just simply will not work. But if you're that business owner and you see my content, it's going to resonate a bit more. So that makes even the content creation process a lot more simple.
Yeah, great. Do you have any tools like, you see all the influencers, hey, make sure you have the Ring camera, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. As somebody who, does create some content and has a podcasting and some social presence with that, all right, it's not as expensive as people think to actually have a basic setup and create that content. So for you, what did you start with and what has that evolved into, if you have evolved any?
I would say it has evolved some, but even right now, if you have an iPhone, or I guess you have an Android too. I'm a big Apple guy, but if you have a phone, your camera is going to be more than sufficient. So I did upgrade eventually to a bit of a nicer camera, but recently my process has been easier, even recording it on an iPhone versus a nicer video recording camera. So if you have an iPhone, you're going to be good. Audio, you probably want that to be decent. But again, even with just what's likely in your pocket right this second, you can get started and the quality is going to be pretty good. So I always encourage people, don't let that be the barrier, to your point, Chris, where you have all that you need now. Sure. Could you upgrade to a camera in the future? Yeah. Can you upgrade to a microphone? Yeah, you can. And that's even probably pretty cheap. Even, 20 to $50 probably gets you a decent mic that's even a little bit better than your phone mic. But that alone, you're pretty much good to go. And then now a lot of the tools, Instagram has their own edits app if you want to do some basic editing there. I think CapCut is still a thing, which is what I started with. And I did have a bit of an advantage because I was sports broadcasting. So I did have a bit of video editing experience prior. So that was immensely helpful. But I mean, for very minimal additional cost, you can record. But I will say at this point, how I've evolved, the biggest one, I don't edit almost any of my videos anymore. I do outsource that to a video editor, which has been amazing. I'll record some content. He'll even help me script things oftentimes. And then a few days later, I'm like, oh, wow, this looks awesome. And all I had to do was just record this thing, send it off, upload it through Google Drive, and boom, it shows up beautiful here in a few days. And then I can just focus on sharing it, focus on serving my clients, and then really outsource the video editing piece that I was decent, but I'm not even close to the level that they're at, and it saves me so much more time.
Yeah, that's great. For now, I still do all the editing, so not to a point to
Yeah.
shop that out just yet. So let's focus in on your profession, what you're doing now with providing financial services and helping people to plan their lives, right? Hopefully towards retirement or whatever those financial goals are. I'm sure you work with a wide range of clients and what their goals are. For you in those conversations, what has served you well, right? To be able to really focus in on, okay, this is what you want, but maybe this is also what you need. And you need, like, that person needs to hear that from you, right? As the person that has the knowledge, advice, and the experience to provide that. So how do you treat your clients as individuals and help them reach their goals?
One thing that I lead almost every single prospect meeting with, after we have an initial phone call, then we do what I call a Zoom strategy session. I'm always leading with one of my favorite questions, which is, why is money important to you? And then I just stop, because it's oftentimes a question that most of us probably have not been asked. And then quick shout out, Carl Richards. He was the one that originally came up with that question, wrote for the New York Times for like 11 years. He's a great guy in the financial planning space. And from that, the conversations would just open up, Chris, because you might first get high level answers. Oh, I want to make more money. I want better investment returns. But then you start getting a bit deeper. I want my kids to have a better opportunity than I had. And it's like, ooh, that's the juicy bit, if you will. That's what we're really after. So now that we've got this lens, because if you just ask, hey, Chris, what are your goals? Again, especially if you're meeting with a financial planner, financial advisor, it might be retire at 65 with $1 million. It's like, okay, well, how did you come up with that? No one is going to really have a reason. It sounds good, right? But once we can now figure out what someone's true goals are, what their values are, making sure those are aligned. So as you mentioned, each person, of course, is going to be unique, but being able to have a relatively similar process or having the same process for everyone, as in same questions, same framework. But then now I could have two people that on paper could be very similar, but one is aggressively trying to save so they can retire early. My advice to them is going to look a lot different than someone who maybe is in the middle of their career, loves their job, never plans on retiring, needs to save up for that, of course, but also wants to make sure that they're not missing out on time with their kids and their sporting events. So the advice is different, but some of those questions are really, really helpful to really figure out. Instead of just saying, what are your goals? It's much easier to have a more free-flowing conversation. And sometimes, since we haven't been asked these questions, people won't even realize why they were doing something, which is awesome, which is really, that's been really cool. They get a lot of insights and can, awareness is power. So.
Yeah, definitely. And right, that's how you treat people as individuals. And right, you really understand what, not maybe their goals, because they may not be stated goals, but what really is the passion and the reason behind it. Right. And everyone should be looking for that, right, in their own lives, right? Whether or not they're meeting with somebody like you in this type of role. But right, really just to motivate and drive yourself towards everything. Right. You gotta understand the why. So no, I think that's great advice and a great thought, especially in an area where people may not be going into that conversation really reflecting on that. So no, that's good. So right, you've developed all these skills, you've done all this great work to this point. I'm going to have you rewind a little bit to, we'll say, one of those last 2 semesters of college, right? You're sitting in that seat and you're listening to a lecture. You have a guest coming in, right? You're like, oh man, I wish this would just maybe be done 10 minutes sooner so I can go to the cafe and get something to eat, get a nice piece of pizza. What is one thing, or maybe multiple things, if you can recall, that you wish you would have taken advantage of a little bit better, or you wish you would have engaged with in a better way that you think would have served you well now?
That's a really good question. Also, some memories starting back to the calf. I haven't said the word calf in a while. Yeah, that was good. And that's a good question. And I was so much of a nerd, Chris, that I had such wonderful professors. And again, I know that this isn't a direct podcast for Westlib, but I had such an amazing college experience there, even from the intellectual piece, not just the extracurricular activities and the different organizations that I was in, but I would hang out with people. We would end up having little mini bets on who could get the highest A on tests. It wasn't about who could get the highest grade. It was who got the highest percentage A on some of these tests. So if I were to look back, I would have continued to lean more into that, because it was a perfect culmination of, I had amazing professors, amazing courses, and then I had a core group of people that we were constantly pushing and challenging each other. Again, we were all geeks, all nerds, and I mean that hopefully in the best type of way. And I still talk to many of those people, and they're crushing it and their professions to this day. So it wasn't as much I wish I would have flipped this, other than maybe I wish I went finance a little bit sooner. Maybe I could have picked up an accounting degree in addition to finance. But I would encourage anyone, lean into that community, because those are going to be people that even once you get out of school, actually I've talked to, it'll be 2 people just today that are in that core group of people. Both of them actually are CPAs at this point, and I talk to them on a semi-regular basis. So absolutely lean into the community aspect, because it's not only going to make your college more fun, it makes learning more fun, but then when you get out into the real world, if you will, they're still amazing resources.
Yeah. So that's good. Right. Just continue to embrace what you've talked about, right? Just lean into it more, take advantage of all the opportunities, right? No matter what they are, you never know how they will serve you well in the future. Again, thinking back to college, what's one thing that you think college wasn't able to or didn't prepare you for once you entered the workforce?
I didn't have, I guess, looking back at college, as much from a sales training, or even, I would say, really marketing. I mean, I think I only had like one high level marketing course, because it was more of the general business course. And that wasn't to say that wasn't a good course, but maybe it wasn't as specific, which I think maybe some of the entrepreneurial classes would have maybe been better suited for that. So that's probably the biggest, because that really is the challenge for many financial advisors, or we'll even say business owners in general, because you could have, we'll say, the best product or service, great prices, but if no one knows about it or you can't communicate it, it doesn't really matter. And sometimes an inferior product or an inferior service will end up winning out because the marketing is better and the sales is better. So again, I short of just having the experience, which is what the door to door was very helpful with, I don't know how you could teach it as much, but I think that would be something that I wish I learned a little bit more, felt a little bit more comfortable with marketing and sales going into it. I think would have helped me a bit more.
Yeah, shout out to all the marketing faculty that are listening and say, yes, pick up a marketing minor, right? Consider this double
Yep.
major, do what you got to do, right? They're all jumping up and
So,
down, appreciating that little tidbit there. So, no, that's good. So, a current topic, and I mean, we'll say current, past, and future 100% is, how AI is going to transform work, potentially the workforce, right? And the again, the coming years and into the indefinite future right now. For you in the industry that you work within and the work that you do, how do you envision AI transforming the workforce, or maybe what it's already done? And what do you see? It's tough to put a timeline to this. We'll say in the next like 2 to 4 years, how it may continue to transform and evolve.
man, I'm so excited about this topic too, Chris. So that's a really good question. So I think it's a twofer. One, it's already transformed the industry, and I think it will continue. Even as recently as there was a tool that came out just this past week called Hazel AI, mostly for advisors, but it's not only a note taking tool that now whenever I'm in meetings with someone, I used to try to take some good notes and even pick up a few of their keywords. Like when I would ask why money is important to them, I wanted to make sure that I copied down their specific words, because if they used freedom versus security, those are very different things, or even freedom versus independence, those can mean different things to different people. So I want to make sure I really fully capture it. So having an AI note taker has been incredible because I can just truly focus on the conversation, knowing that I have full confidence that that note taker is transcribing everything and is listening and even helping me figure out what the next steps are. So I'm not constantly trying to have a conversation, look down, write notes, and then, okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I feel really confident in that. And then I think in the next, this is even next few months, not even next few years, this AI tool is going to have even more context on all of the conversations that we might have had, whether that be a phone call, email exchange, text exchange, of course, a face-to-face that we're on Riverside now, or something like Zoom. And it's going to have all that context to be able to say, hey, what did Chris and I talk about 3 months ago? Or is there any action item that maybe we missed or that we should cover again? Or even back to the content perspective. Hey, I've had several incredible meetings with Chris. What are some quotes that I could pull out from our conversations that I can then repurpose into content? It shows how much talking that I do. Did I talk for 50% or more? It legit shows that, Chris. So even being able to see what types of metrics, what am I shooting for with those? And again, that's all available today. And I think the advisors, and also this is likely across multiple industries, but those that adopt AI, again, always ask what's the purpose, because I don't think AI is just going to replace a bunch of humans. I'm very bullish on AI, but I don't believe it's going to displace the workforce that I think a lot of doom and gloomers are suggesting. I think it's only going to enhance it. So for me, like, okay, how much can you contribute to a Roth IRA each year? That's not my value. You've already had Google, and AI is absolutely going to be able to help you with that. But it's, hey, I'm trying to deal with this assignment of income tax issue where I'm getting paid personally, but I won't bore you all with the jargon there. That's a bigger decision that has higher stakes. So anytime the stakes get higher, I think that's where professionals in multiple industries, medical is a really good example. Anytime the stakes get higher, you're going to want that personal connection. So how can I, as the advisor, automate what doesn't need to be done by a human, and then me get to focus on these conversations, the human connection? And I think advisors and also people in general that focus on that, I think they're going to be ahead of the curve and have a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, definitely a tool to help efficiency and effectiveness, right?
Absolutely.
And the person that's using it needs to understand how to use it more than anything, right?
Also
You
that.
can have the tool, but it's a tool in the tool belt. It's not the solution to the problem. So that's how I like to
Mhm.
talk about it in the classroom. Is this is just another tool in the tool belt. It's not going to give you all the answers. at least you need to vet it and confirm that the information you're getting is on point. So
Right. And even real quick, can I throw that question back to you? How has AI impacted your life as both a teacher? You're creating a lot of content too. You're in these various different arenas. So where have you seen AI really benefiting? What's called your life in general through these various roles?
yeah, benefiting me as far as my life, right? And I'm pretty honest and transparent with students in the classroom. Hey guys, I use these tools. And I usually will say, this is how I am using it. But I am also not just blindly accepting that the information that's being put out to me. I will
Right.
say it helps me identify and brainstorm like classroom activities in a different way, right? I have a thought in my mind of what I want to do, and then I'll just pop in like, hey, classroom activity on this topic, small group activity, and we want to focus on this, right? And it pops out some options, and I'd be like, I like this, don't like this. And then I pull it together and be like, okay, here's the actual classroom activity we're going to use. It's going to be, 20-ish minutes at the end of the class. And then I just work through it. It helps me develop scenarios, right? I can have the topic, but okay, what are the scenarios? Sometimes my
Mm-hmm.
mind's not going to be able to be opened up enough to really think across different industries and how that could be applied. So for me, it's like, okay, let's just see what pops out. And like I said, sometimes it's 100% something I will want to use, and sometimes it's 20%, and then I have to fill in the gaps. And as far as working with students and using I am very much just, hey, I try to demonstrate responsible use within an academic setting, right? I
Mm.
try to say, okay, we're doing research assignments. Guess what, everybody? When I was going through college, Wikipedia was the tool that you were not allowed to use because it was not going to give you valuable information. I say, this is just your generation's version of Wikipedia. And I say, guess what Wikipedia has at the bottom of the page? A list of sources and references, right? Just like most of the AI tools are putting out to you now, they give you a link. Let's follow that link and see what the genesis and what the true source of this information is. You're doing the same thing I was doing, just with a new tool, right? A more advanced and tool that's
A
able to
little more
better
advanced.
provide information, but it's still going to typically give you something to go back to and confirm the original source. So I try to demonstrate, try to show them, and they, okay, now you guys can put this into action in a way that at least I know I showed you the best ways. Now, whether or not you take my advice, that's on you. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I use it in the classroom and in my everyday life. And with content, yeah, let's provide me a social media post description on a video that highlights this, this, and this. Let's see what pops out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Even in the academic setting, because I feel like that's where it's getting really heavily scrutinized. Obviously, you know this way more than I do, but you're you're not just teaching people, oh, just this is ChatGPT or whatever the AI is. Here's how to use it. Right. Because I think that's where the value is. It's going to be how does the human use the tool, which is what you said. And when people can learn that in college, where it's not just ChatGPT, write me a paper with 750 words on this, copy, paste, submit. I'm like, that's elementary version, and it's going to look and sound like AI wrote it because it did. But when it's a research partner, brainstorming tool that you're using it as, and again, when you're even saying, I used it, here's how I used it, then I think that also gets people thinking creatively, oh, I mean, I didn't maybe realize I could use this as a brainstorming partner. And then they start to utilize it. Now they get more efficient. They get to answers quicker. And of course, fact checking before they're, putting that in their research paper. But it's just a much more efficient tool. So that's kudos to you for teaching, not just don't use AI. Hey, here's an effective way to use this as a tool. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So, rounding out here, got two last questions for you. The first one is, I want to understand and know the best career or professional advice you've ever received, and why it's been so valuable for you.
Mm. Ooh, that's a really good question. And for those that don't know, it's not like Chris is sending these really good questions ahead of time, so it's going to take a second. I think probably in the context of just this one sounds kind of basic, but serving others. When you're truly serving others, when you're putting them first. And again, we'll put this in the business context, but I think this works in whether you're in corporate, whether you have your own business. When the why and the purpose is to focus on how is this benefiting, in my case, the end client. Like, why am I doing this? Yes, that's going to generate more revenue for me and my firm, but why should they take this? Why should they work with me versus someone else? And I think just truly and genuinely caring is such a huge thing, especially in today's world where we have a lot of service level conversations. So if I can help be a conduit of asking these good questions and again, genuinely caring, it's easy to tell when someone's faking that. Like if you can ask the same questions, but if you're just trying to lead it to a sale, people know, people can sniff it out. But when you are genuinely, hey, I want to help you. I even have my process set up in a way where if even someone goes through the initial process, they still leave with a one-page plan and next steps. And I'm like, look, even if we don't work together, please consider implementing these because I fully believe that they are in your best interest. Whether you pay me a dime, whether you implement with someone else, I mean, I prefer it be with me, but I still would recommend that you utilize these tools. So I think just having a heart to serve others and genuinely caring, I think that's going to lead to success in whatever you do.
Yeah, it's servant leadership, right? Servant
Yeah,
leadership, and in this case, servant service. When you think about it, right? You're providing a
absolutely. Yeah,
service, and you're providing you want to build a relationship with somebody, and that means serving them in the best way possible, even if it's not with you, right?
yeah,
I think that's a mature, right, thought, right? That many people in their careers don't really come to that conclusion until later on when they've realized I. I made a lot of maybe enemies in how I handled things, or you know put people in positions where I was not the best option for them. Right. And
right,
you have to come to that realization at some point in life.
right.
You're not the Swiss Army knife for everything and everybody.
Hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it also reframes it over the long term because there are decisions that I could have made earlier in my firm that I could have generated revenue a bit quicker. I could have maybe bought lists and just spam emailed a bunch of people, which I know some quote unquote marketing gurus might even suggest. But oftentimes, if we're thinking short term and making decisions solely based on that, and again, I acknowledge we do have to eat, we do have to put food on the table. But if everything is about how do I get the next sale and we're not thinking long term, it really does drastically change the decision. Like even from the social media perspective, if you think you're going to get on social media, post a few times and get a bunch of leads for your business, well, one, if you are, I'd like to talk to you, figure out what you did. But for the rest of us, which is like everyone else, that just doesn't happen. But if you go in with a long-term mindset with the proper expectations, your decision-making changes drastically. And typically, I would argue for the better.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. No, that's awesome. So any final words of wisdom you wish to share with to-be graduates, those that are entering the workforce, or really anyone else that's trying to find that next step and position themselves for success in their careers?
Give yourself plenty of grace. You don't have to have it all figured out. So in my particular case, I just happened to be super, super passionate coming out of school. At that point, knowing pretty confidently what I wanted to do, and I just dove into it. I totally acknowledge that I'm in the minority there. Not a lot of people necessarily have that passion from day one. Where almost from day one, I mean, minus maybe the knocking on doors piece, a lot of things of my day to day I truly enjoyed. And I am incredibly blessed because of that. So the advice of giving yourself grace, don't think that you have to perfectly find that. Or also, one time I heard advice that says your first job is going to define your entire career. Oh, that seems like that's so much pressure. And especially in today's day and age, hardly anyone is staying with the same company and retiring with the gold watch at 65. So people are jumping around more. So do things that maybe you're not 100% sure if you're going to love. Hopefully there's at least something, but go into things. What can I learn from this? Because if you look back, and if you've listened to this podcast at all, you're going to see all sorts of different stories that aren't perfectly planned out. Even my story's not perfectly planned out, and I felt like I had a pretty knew what I wanted to do after school. So then give yourself plenty of grace. Look at these different opportunities, knowing that this one decision is not going to, you're not stuck in this particular field. If I don't want to at all, but if I were to want to shift to a different field, I've already learned so many different things that I could then likely apply. So even I don't necessarily feel stuck. So give yourself plenty of grace, take the next step, learn as much as you can, and keep taking that next smallest step. And hopefully you end up where you want to be with some guidance and direction.
Yeah, I think that's not just professionally, but personally as well. Giving yourself that grace can lead to a lot of, I think, just letting it go and allowing yourself to take that next step, right?
Yeah.
Having that grace and being willing to reflect on, okay, this wasn't the best thing, but a lot of things could have happened that were much worse for me. So, right,
Right.
allow yourself that little bit. So take that,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Give yourself
Makes life a
grace
little easier.
and personally. Yeah, there we go. Brandon, again, thank you. Do you want to shout out any of your socials or how anybody can connect with you if you're interested in learning more about you, the services that you offer, or just maybe trying to educate themselves a little bit more on how they can be better financial planners?
Sure. I'm on all the social media platforms pretty much at Galici Financial. you'll find me there, and I'm happy to talk to anyone. Like I said, I even have a free process at the beginning where people leave with value. So I'm not one of the firms that requires $500,000 or $1 million even just to have a conversation. If you couldn't even tell from this little conversation today, I love helping people. I love talking about this stuff. So I'm always happy to be a resource for folks. And then those that are looking to get into the profession, I talk to aspiring financial planners and a lot of folks in my industry on a really regular basis, and love talking to other people in the industry because I have an abundance mindset. I don't see other advisors as competition. In fact, I see the competition being in action more than other advisors. So happy to connect, whether it's on the personal finance side. You've got some questions about your old 401ks, investments, or taxes, or if you're looking to get into the industry or you are into the industry, happy to be a resource. Again, at Galici Financial on all the platforms. Plus, if you just Google my name, Brandon Galici, very blessed that I'm the only one to my knowledge in the world. My stuff will pop up.
And for those listening, if you don't know how to spell that last name, that's Galici at
Perfect. Thank you.
Galici Financial. So Brandon, again, thank you. Appreciate it. A lot of great thoughts and little tips, hints, and tricks that people can take into the next step of their professional lives. And everybody, make sure that you tune in to the next episode of From Classroom to Corner Office, Career Talks with Chris.